Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Sadly, it is that time of year once again when we need to talk about Games Workshop prices. An announcement's been made on the 7th of May regarding this. Games Workshop have said that whilst they will be keeping some costs the same, so here we're looking at paints, both the individual pots and paint sets, White Dwarf and Black Library publications, other products will be going up by somewhere between 3 and 5% for most countries. It's important to note most countries do not include Sweden and Norway, where the average price change is going to be between 8 and 14%. So I think this is definitely news which will come as a disappointment to a lot of people, but I think is also to a certain extent understandable. Now, I appreciate anyone can go onto Warhammer Community, anyone can see this news. So for me, I think what's important for this video is what do I think about it? Well, at the current time, inflation in the UK is about 3.2%. It's obviously been higher and has been coming down over the last few months. And obviously also Games Workshop aren't in the business of changing their prices every week, every month, and bouncing around in the way that inflation stats do. And certainly they don't change their pricing as regularly as, for example, mortgage providers, where rates change on pretty much a monthly basis depending on what interest rates are doing overall. So we have had consistency over the last 12 months, and the price range that's being announced for the UK is broadly in line with inflation plus a little bit. Now, Games Workshop, it is a business, it's in the job of making money, that's what it's going to do, and it can't allow inflation to affect its profits unless it absolutely has to. And if we look at the services that I'm sure pretty much everyone watching this video will use, things like mobile phones, for example, virtually all of the big mobile phone providers will put prices up each year, inflation plus a percentage. So if it's percentage plus, say, 3%, instead of going up 3 to 5%, you'd be looking at inflation increase of 6 plus. And this can be quite a big chunk of change, particularly in times when inflation is high. That becomes actually quite a sizable increase when you're looking at pounds and pence, or I suppose dollar and cents. Now, it has felt in the past when inflation was low that some of the price rises from Games Workshop were a little egregious. They did seem to be profiteering from the fact that things were going fairly well in the economy, and whilst their costs weren't going up massively, the amount of money in people's pockets was increasing at the end of the month, and people were feeling a little bit better off. Now, whether or not we are turning the corner on the financial doom and gloom we've had over the last few years, it remains to be seen. I think the jury's still out. But we have gone through a prolonged period, whatever happens, where people have had less money in their pockets. We've been hit by increased costs, be it renting, be it mortgages, accessing financial products if we need to take out loans. Mobile phones, as previously mentioned, the cost of those with their increasing inflation plus model means bigger and bigger strain on our wallets. And this will definitely, I think, have an ongoing impact on people's ability to pick up the plastic crack. Now, as much as I've said, I understand why Games Workshop have done their price rise, and it doesn't feel particularly egregious. It feels, dare I say it, reasonable. I do think when you look at the starting point pricing for models, particularly some of those in the Warhammer Old World range, where we've not got past years to compare costs to, and they can just charge pretty much what they think they can get away with as a starting point. Things are perhaps going to be a little bit more awkward. The Grail Knights are a unit that pops into head pretty quickly because £12 per figure, 36 quid for 3 figures. That's obviously going up, so it's going to be best part of £40 for 3 models. That's aggressively priced in my my book, particularly when we're looking at some really, really old models where the costs of producing them have long been paid. And I think what this really brings me to is, what does the future perhaps look like? And pulling out our crystal balls. As models become more and more expensive and have to compete harder with the basic necessities of life. Throw in there the fact that, certainly from a Warhammer Old World perspective, there's a lot more competition in the market. You're not just looking at the old Mantic models, and by the old Mantic models I mean their original sculpts from way back when, as being competition for Games Workshop. There's a lot more competition out there, and the quality of the sculpts has improved a lot. And then, of course, there's 3D printers. Everyone's favourite topic, and saying 3D printer, go brrr. On a local perspective, I'm seeing this more and more, where people either turn to their own 3D printer as they become more prevalent, or they turn to a friend with 3D printers in order to get models which are pretty similar, if not quite the same, to a Games Workshop offering. And I think this will only increase in popularity as time goes on. 3D printers, it's not the future, it's the thing now. We know this, and it will only become more of a thing going forward. Some companies are already selling STL versions of their models, as well as the hard plastic versions. Remains to be seen, I think, how Games Workshop react to this. But ultimately, I think there will become a tipping point where ever-increasing prices of miniatures are going to put them a little bit on the back foot, and they will have to adapt to changes in the landscape. But there we have it. 10th of June, prices going up once again for our Games Workshop models and army books, etc. They have said that they're telling us now to give us time to get models and things that we want at the current prices, which doesn't necessarily help us from an old world perspective when so many models either haven't been released yet or, quite frankly, are unattainable because they sell out so quickly. What do you think of the prices? Do let me know down in the comments below. Is it a reasonable figure? Is it an unreasonable figure? And how can Games Workshop possibly react to the changing landscapes of 3D printers and third-party competition? All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed this video and others like it, various news and project updates, do consider subscribing to the channel if you've not already done so. It is the best way of supporting a small channel such as this one. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I am returned to the old world. Have a great day.